Hey guys, this is John from US Dash Camera. Today I got my top 5 dash cameras for New Year's 2018. So I am going to talk about several other dash cameras throughout this video because I really can't limit it to just my top 5, but I did want to have a top 5 of different style of cameras. So this isn't going to be in any particular order. I'm going to talk about why each one is one of my favorite, and that doesn't mean that one compared to any of the other 4 on this list or any of the others I mentioned are necessarily worse. But I do want to go through each one and really specify what makes that one special. For example, maybe a really affordable entry-level camera that I would like, which I am going to start out with. Now, I also want to say that this is just my opinion based on all of the cameras I've used. I'll provide links to reviews and also where you can purchase any of these cameras down in the description. But like I said, I wanted to point out that this is just my opinion. There's a lot of cameras I haven't used, so these are going to be my personal favorites, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that disagree with my favorite cameras, so I'll try my best to explain why I like them. But if you disagree, or if you think there's other cameras that I didn't mention that should be on this list, just put down in the comments down below which cameras you think I missed out on, or which ones I should check out. So the first camera we're going to be talking about is an Anker Roav camera, and this is the C2 model. Now this is probably one of the least popular Anker Roav dash cameras, but it's also the cheapest at only $60 currently, and it does come with 2 separate mounts, one adhesive mount and one suction cup mount. All of the Anker Roav dash cameras also come with an Anker USB charger for your car. It includes 2 ports, so you can also charge your phone, and both ports are 2.4 amps, which I think is very useful. And again, I like that it has this adhesive mount and the suction cup mount, so you can use the adhesive in your main car and the suction cup mount in something like a rental car or on a road trip in someone else's car. I also really love the audio alerts.
Please insert micro SD card. Roav Dashcam is recording.
Now, Anker did just release an A1 model. I haven't reviewed it yet, but I did purchase it. It's also $60 and includes Wi-Fi, but the main loss is it doesn't have those audio alerts that I particularly love, and it only has the suction cup mount, so they don't give you an adhesive mount, and they also give you a much cheaper car charger, and it only has 1 port, so you can't charge your phone at the same time. I don't think the Wi-Fi is actually worth it over the C2 model. I would prefer the C2 model, although I haven't done comparisons on the video quality yet, so that could change my opinion. Of course, there are also the C1 and C1 Pro models. I really like all of the Anker dash cameras, but one major problem is they all use batteries to use this weird parking mode that uses its internal battery, but it's been causing problems with a lot of people in hot climates like Texas or Arizona, so that's part of the reason why the C1 models didn't make the list, because there's comparable cameras that I think are more suited for everyone. I chose the C2 model because I like that it's versatile and you can use it in multiple cars, and it's sort of like a souped up G1W, which used to be one of the most popular dash cameras. Of course, the video quality is decent. It's just the Sony IMX323 image sensor, so it's nothing particularly special. It's very comparable to the G1WC or G1WS from Viafo. I think if you're looking for the best quality video, this camera isn't the one for you, but again, I really love the versatility of this camera, and for being only $60 and including audio alerts, such as when your memory card is missing or when it needs to be formatted or when it starts and stops recording, I think that's very helpful, because sometimes you might forget to put the memory card back in, or maybe the power adapter isn't working, or maybe you accidentally unplugged it. So those audio alerts are really great to me. I basically feel like this camera is a modern version of the G1W with more high-tech features. Now, the A119 from Viafo was on last year's list. Since then, there was a V2 model because there were some issues with the GPS mount on the back. But again, this camera since last year is still one of the best values in a dash camera for great video quality, and since the V2 model I feel like it's very dependable. I haven't seen any complaints like the original model had, and again, it's just that great video quality for about $80 to $100 depending on which model you get. There's also the A119S, which only does 1080p, where this one does 1440p. Now this isn't going to show up on the YouTube video, it's just going to be 1080p. But to this day, this still is one of my most recommended dash cameras that I tell people when they're looking for an affordable camera. And this also uses a supercapacitor, unlike the Anker Roav C1 or C1 Pro. The C1 Pro uses pretty much the same specs as this camera, but with that battery, that's definitely concerning, because I've heard a lot of people complain about the camera shutting down or just locking up and not recording. And when it comes to reliability and good video quality at an affordable price, a year later the A119 is still up there on the top of my list. One other recent feature they added since I reviewed it is a parking mode, which uses a time-lapse feature where when it senses that the car is off, if you hardwire it, then it'll switch to a low frame rate mode. And I think this parking mode option is a lot more suitable for most people than the Anker parking mode, which uses the internal battery. So definitely one of the best cameras out there still. Now this next camera is the Vantrue N2 Pro. I've had this for about a month or so now. I actually did buy it on Amazon when they had a lightning deal, and I've wanted it for quite a while. I think it's a really cool camera. It does similar 1440p in the front as the A119, but it does actually have a 2-channel mode where it can do 1080p front and 1080p rear, with the rear camera built into the back of the main unit. It does also have a small screen for changing the settings or viewing files, and this camera is definitely very popular with rideshare drivers, for example Uber, Lyft, or taxi drivers, but I think it could also be very good for recording your incidences with police when you get pulled over. Since the rear camera is 1080p, it does get pretty high quality video. It does also have infrared lights, so even when it's completely dark, you can see majority of inside of your car pretty well, so this is great for rideshare drivers. Now the front again, I did say it does 1440p, has the same image sensor as the A119, but it only does 1440p if you're doing the single channel mode. So if you are recording with the rear camera, the front is only going to be 1080p. But overall, I thought the video quality was very good. It is comparable to the A119, but I think the A119 with a better fine-tuned firmware does have the edge. But of course, this is something that is going to appeal to people that are also looking for the ability to record inside of their car, such as those Uber and Lyft drivers. So I am pretty excited about it. I haven't put out my review yet, but of course I will have the review sometime soon, so check that out. Make sure you subscribe to my channel and keep up to date with all my dashcam reviews. And again, I'd like to remind everyone, purchase links or review links will be down in the description down below. So this next camera is from Blackview, but this is not the 750S, this is the 490. There's also a 590, which is pretty much the same thing as this, very similar, and this is their budget 1080p 2-channel camera. So it does have the same Sony Starvis image sensor front and rear as the top of the line 750S model from Blackview, but it does lack GPS and it also lacks Wi-Fi. Now GPS, you can just buy this pretty cheap dongle to add, but the Wi-Fi you can never add, so if you want to change any of the settings, you do have to use the PC or Mac software, and this is also how you're going to export your video files. Now overall, I thought this video quality was very good for a 2-channel system, especially one that's pretty high-tech coming from Blackview. Blackview cameras typically specialize in pre-buffered automatic parking mode, and of course this camera is no exception. So when I compared this to the 650S or the 750S, I found it to be very similar. Now there is also a LCD model which I compared, and that was pretty much the same, virtually the same. So if you are looking for a model with an LCD screen, then there is the 490L version. But again, this camera starts at about $200 without the PowerMagic Pro hardwiring kit for just the base model, and that's about half the price as the 750S. Now the benefit of the 750S, of course, is the fact that it has built-in GPS, built-in Wi-Fi, it has a very advanced cloud feature, and while it does have the same Sony Starvis image sensor as the cheaper 490 and 590 models, it does support 60 frames per second in the front. Now the video quality has been up in the air between the 490 and 750 for me. I think the 750 definitely does do better at closer range, but I noticed the 490 seemed to have better clarity at long distance for some reason, but I think mileage may vary with everyone. Now of course with the parking mode, which I'm showing here, the Blackview cameras, including the 490, uses a pre-buffered parking mode where after the camera hasn't been moving for a while, if it's hardwired, it switches to parking mode, and then it sits in this idle mode where if it senses motion or an impact, it'll start recording. But it doesn't start recording once it senses that motion or impact. It'll start recording 10 prior seconds. What's nice about that is you're not constantly recording to your memory card like a lot of other cheaper cameras parking mode, which means the memory card's likely going to live a lot longer, and it's also easier to find important footage. You don't have to scroll through 8 hours of time-lapse footage. The motion sensor is good for watching people around your car, such as pedestrians or people potentially keying your car. But if you live in or park in a high traffic area, you might want to consider turning motion sensing off during parking mode and only leaving the impact detection on, and that way if someone hits your car in a parking lot, then you will still capture that video, and you're not going to have endless hours of footage in your parking mode because it has that pre-buffered automatic parking mode, and that's something that Blackview really specializes at. Now again, the 750S is a camera that I think people should consider, but it is very expensive. You're going to be spending over $400 easily, and it is very high tech. It does have, like I said, the built-in Wi-Fi, so you can change all of your settings within your smartphone app. And of course it does have the cloud feature where if you have a hotspot built into your car, and if the hotspot's even on when your car is off, you can get notifications, as you can see here, to your cell phone when you're away from your car. So if someone hits your car, then you'll get a notification within seconds that someone hit it. Another weird thing is the 490 has a smaller camera, the one on the right, where the 590 and the 750 has the larger rear camera. Here you can see this is the 750 2-channel, and the 490 and the new 590 is a little bit smaller, so the mounts aren't going to be compatible with each other. So it is something to consider. Also, the 750 does have a single channel model, but if you buy the single channel model, you cannot upgrade it to a 2-channel model later, so you do have to consider that. In the end, the reason I chose the 490 or the new 590 as one of my top 5 cameras is because it's about half the price with still great video quality. Now my final camera is the Thinkware F800 Pro. Now this is going to be pretty controversial too, I think, because a lot of people think either Thinkware or Blackview is better. You know, there's a lot of back and forth between which model is better or which company is better. And in many regards, the Blackview 750S model is better, but I'll explain why I prefer this camera. Now this camera, here you can see it laid out with all the accessories, is a much more slimmer, more discreet camera, I feel like. And for one, it does also have the voltage protection, high temperature protection, all that stuff built in. You don't need something like the PowerMagic Pro. You just have a hardwiring cable that goes straight to your fuse box or auxiliary battery. I think the form factor is much better. Now, one thing I do prefer with the F800 series of cameras over the 750S Blackview cameras is the fact that there's a physical power button on the camera. Now, it's not a switch either. It is a button that you hold down for about 5 seconds and the camera shuts off. The reason I like that is because when I park in my garage, I have it hooked up to a Cell-Link Battery B, and I live in a very cold climate. I like to turn the camera off when I park in the garage to try to save battery, and I can't do that with the Blackview other than just unplugging it, but then I have to remember to plug it back in. Some people might always remember, but I can tell you from experience, I do forget sometimes, and that's why I prefer cameras that have those audio alerts that will remind me, because if I get in and out of my car a lot each day, it's easy to forget about the dash camera because they are set and forget devices. So it's, sometimes I forget to turn the camera off, but that's no big deal. I think what's most important is if I shut it off, when I start my truck back up, it's going to start recording again because I don't have to remember to plug it back in or hit the switch to turn it back on. Overall, the video quality is nice. I think the Blackview 750S does excel in some areas, but I noticed when I compared them side by side, and you can check in my reviews down below, that sometimes the 750S did better, sometimes the F800 did better, so it's really up in the air. I think it's going to come down to whether or not you want the cloud feature, because while the ThinkWare does have the Wi-Fi support with the Wi-Fi app, and you can change all of the settings in the app, it does not have nearly as good of a cloud feature. Now, the parking mode overall, I would say, is better. They do have a couple different modes besides just the motion detection and impact detection, and of course it is pre-buffered, so when it detects motion or an impact, you get 10 seconds prior to that trigger, not a second or so after. But there is also a time-lapse feature. I'm not a big fan of time-lapse, but there are benefits to this. One of the reasons that someone might want to use it is in a very high traffic area. If you have motion detection on, you're just going to be recording pretty much non-stop. So you could record 9 hours while you're at work, and that's that could potentially record over your entire memory card, depending on how big your memory card is. So that definitely helps, and the files are much smaller than if it was just pure motion detection mode. Now, there's also this power saving parking mode, which is pretty similar to the standard motion or impact detection, but it's not pre-buffered. So what that means is it uses about a third less power. You can record longer, and the big con, of course, is it doesn't start recording until after the trigger. So they claim it starts recording within a second of the motion or impact. Now, one feature I couldn't test are these safety camera alerts with these red light and speed cameras, because they are not allowed in my state. They're considered unconstitutional, but it is interesting that they offer this feature. I would say one of the most anticipated features for me and probably a lot of people was the fact that they added the cloud to the F800 Pro, and I said a few minutes ago that it's going to come down to the cloud for most people, I think, for the F800 Pro versus the 750S. And the big con with the cloud feature is it's so underdeveloped on the F800, and it's only on the F800 Pro. The standard model doesn't include it, but this impact notification is only while the car is driving. There's no way to get any sort of notification while it's in parking mode, which is a huge letdown, and it basically makes, for me, the cloud feature useless, personally. So for my next camera, I might actually consider looking at the 4K Blackview, because I don't see ThinkWare catching up with Blackview on that cloud feature, and the cloud support is something I've been wanting to dabble in and get a hotspot in my truck at all times. So in the future, you might see me switch to Blackview for my primary camera. So again, though, the reason I chose the F800 Pro for this top 5 list over the Blackview 750S are because of those few reasons I listed. I prefer the form factor. I prefer the built-in voltage protection and high temperature protection as opposed to having an external device like the PowerMagic Pro. I also really prefer having a physical off button on the camera. That's very beneficial to me, because if you hook up a Blackview camera to the CellLink Battery B, you have no way of shutting it off other than unplugging it. That's a big con. I really wish the CellLink Battery B would release a new version that added a timer or high temperature protection also built in to give that feature to cameras like Blackview cameras that don't have it. So overall, that is my top 5 dash cameras for the new year coming into 2018. Again, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that disagree with me. Comment down below what you agree with, what you disagree with, what cameras you think are the best. I love to hear other people's opinions, and of course, I do want to try any cameras I've missed out on or haven't tried yet. So, of course, I'm going to remind people again, if you are interested in any of these cameras, I'll have review links and purchase links through Amazon down below in the description. Those are Amazon affiliate links that help support this channel. A bunch of these cameras I've shown today I did buy myself, so it does help with your guys' support. If you like this video or my other videos, I'd appreciate it if you hit like and subscribe, and as usual, drive safe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.